Awesome, thank you. All right, thank you everybody for watching our select. That's you.
I like the way it sounds.
Echo.
Oh, God, I'm gonna sneeze again.
We all better now? That sounds awesome. All right, if you all please rise and join me for the pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to start with public comment.
Yes.
And we have somebody that has public
I-
comment.
Public comment, yes, thank you very much. Is the microphone on? That's fine. No, I'm fine. I'm fine, very quick. Thank you for giving me this opportunity at public comment. We have people who volunteer in the town on and off all the time, and we always thank them in our meetings, and I know we always mean it, but I wanted to start a tradition of writing individual members a letter thanking them for their service. So I did this to the members of the Trash and Recycling Committee, and I wrote as follows. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to each of you for your outstanding dedication and hard work over the past year and a half. Your persistent efforts, thoughtful research, and collaboration have resulted in a single significant achievement for our community, the town's decision to purchase and distribute 96-gallon recycling carts. This milestone reflects not only your commitment to improving our waste management systems, but also your vision for a cleaner, more sustainable future. Through your leadership, our town is taking meaningful steps toward raising public awareness about the financial and environmental benefits of reducing trash tonnage by redirecting and repurposing items that would otherwise be discarded. It has been my distinct pleasure and honor to have served on this exceptional committee alongside of all of you. Your work has made a lasting difference, setting a strong example of how local action can contribute to broader environmental stewardship. On behalf of all who value a cleaner, greener community, thank you for your dedication, perseverance, and service. With gratitude and respect, sincerely, Kathleen Castronellis. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to discussion and possible vote. We'll start with the presentation from our town accountant.
Okay. Good evening. I'm here to present the fiscal year 2025 results. We will be going over revenues, expenditures, our free cash certification, some key metrics indicating the town's financial standing at June 30, 2025, and some short and long-term financial objectives we've developed based on this information. This is an overview of revenues by category. The top section shows the FY25 tax levy, which is your prior year levy, plus 2.5%, adding any overrides, which we do not have any new growth, and then debt exclusions. The town collected the majority of these property taxes, all but about $71,000. Other revenue consists of tax title collections, which are unbudgeted collections of past due property tax accounts. About $15,000 was collected in FY25. Excuse me. Local receipts, which are motor vehicle excise taxes, penalties and interests, pilot payments, rentals, departmental revenues, licenses and permits, fines, and investment income. This is where the bulk of our revenues that were over budget came in, and we're going to go over this in more detail on the next slide. State aid is the next type of revenue. This is the annual amount determined through the state budgeting process, paid to the town in monthly installments. This came in $65K over budget due to an FY23 prorated supplemental budget from the state and some election and exemption reimbursements. Other financing sources are usually transfers in from other entities or funds. For example, the $139,000 budget for FY '25 is made up of a $40,000 transfer from the Light Department, $5,000 of bond premiums, $85,000 from free cash to cover the OPEB and the operating budget, and $9K from Conservation Receipts Reserve Fund to cover some costs in the budget for the Conservation Department. The overall revenue came in over budget by about $809,000, with the majority of this overage coming from local receipts. As previously discussed, we collected about $71K of the FY '25 property taxes, which is 99.66% collection rate, up from last year's rate of 98.83%. This is a great indicator of the financial health of the town and shows the vital services of the town are being adequately funded. Most of the town's revenue that came in over budget came from local receipts, specifically motor vehicle excise taxes, building permits, and interest income. Motor vehicle excise taxes are based on car sales and market values. This came in $289,000 over budget. This is a number that can have large variations, especially with interest rates on vehicle loans being relatively high. Building permits came in $286,000 over budget. The Sewell Street property went farther along than expected, so they ended up pulling more permits in FY '25 than anticipated. Interest income came in $180,000 over budget. This is due to uncertain markets and reports that rates will be heading in a downward trend, so budgeting is done conservatively here. The reason why local receipts is where we see the most variance between budgets and actuals is they are budgeted very conservatively. This is because they are not guaranteed revenues. Budgeting conservatively decreases the risk to the town and the taxpayer, and it can also help build reserves without increasing taxes. Now we'll move on to expenses. We were $716,000 under in operating expenses, mainly in the first four categories of general government, public safety, school, and public works. Human services came in $30K under, due mainly to some turnover in COA, and unclassified came in slightly under budget due to unemployment compensation and Medicare taxes. Non-appropriated expenses came in $71K over budget, which was mainly due to overlay. A large property had filed for and received an abatement. Due to the size of the property and the number of buildings on the property, this abatement raised our 5-year average. Therefore, total overlay had to be increased more than anticipated when we set the budget, and this should even out over the next few years. Together, these brought the FY '25 expense budget to $645K under budget. This shows more detail of the four areas where the operating budget came in significantly under budget. General government came in under budget by $289,000. This was due mainly to unused contingencies. For example, we did not need to use our reserve funds. Accounts like legal and insurance need to have contingencies built into them, as we cannot predict our number of claims or if a scenario will arise that we will need to utilize legal counsel over and above the normal course of business. Luckily, in FY '25, we did not need to use these contingencies. In addition, we did not fill a part-time conservation agent position, and we also got a contract where we were able to lock in gas rates, which brought utilities in under budget. Public safety came in under budget by $157,000, mainly due to some patrolman positions being open at different points throughout the year. Communication wages came in under budget because we got a grant that covered a portion of the dispatch wages. And police had a reduction in fuel due to turnover. Less patrolmen means less patrols and therefore less fuel. Fire had a reduction in call wages due to having 2 full-time firefighters covering calls during business hours and less call firefighters responding to medical calls. Education came in $70,000 under budget because our final Essex Tech assessment came in lower than budgeted. We don't usually receive these assessments. specifically the Essex Tech one, until after we've set the budget, so we get as close as we can. Public Works came in 159,000 below budget. Both the tree warden budget and the snow and ice budget came in under due to mild weather. Going forward, we have done a general inventory of all town property, including trees, and are putting together a preventative maintenance plan. This will save costs in the long run, and maintaining the trees will help reduce damages from wind and storms. Sanitation came in under budget. Sanitation is another one of those slightly unpredictable areas where we need to build contingencies into the budget, as both tonnage and recycling costs can be unpredictable. For FY25, these costs came in lower than expected. All these items amounted to about $675K in expenses, coming in under budget, which is the majority of our overall budgetary savings. So all this revenue expense discussion brings us to free cash. On September 18th, 2025, the town received its notification of free cash approval of $1,894,961. This is a result of our financial planning, conservatively budgeting local receipts, building reasonable and conservative contingencies into variable expense lines, and not appropriating 100% of our free cash each year. So how do you know if 1.8 is reasonable, if it's correct? You look at those numbers we just talked about. Our revenue came in 109,000 over, our expenses 645 under, and we did leave 353,000 of free cash unappropriated from last year. So that gets you to your 1.8. There are a few other things that go into it, but that's sort of a quick estimate that you can do to make sure it's reasonable. So now that we have 1.8 in free cash, what do we do with it? So the town's free cash goal is to maintain an unappropriated balance that is 3 to 5% of our annual general fund budget. Anything in excess of this 3 to 5% can be appropriated. We also want to avoid using free cash to reduce operating expenses or to reduce the tax rate. I know this may sound like a great idea, but free cash funds are one-time funds. They are not guaranteed next year. If you use them to fund operating costs, you will get stuck when the funds are not there next year, and this will negatively affect the taxpayer. Free cash as a percentage of FY25 operating budget is just under 8% this year. In FY24, it was 5.2. This is just another quick ratio to check and show our financial policies and strategies are falling into place. When we look at what to spend, we can spend anything over 3 to 5% of the general fund operating budget. So 3% of our annual general fund operating budget is $713,000, and 5% would be about $1.2 million. So this leaves between $707,000 and $1.2 million available to appropriate. We appropriate for only one-time expenditures like capital items and transfers into stabilization. Some key metrics to look at annually are those related to our financial reserves, capital financing, and debt limits. Financial reserves are free cash and any stabilization funds. The goals stated on this slide are all minimums, but financial reserves should always be much higher so the town has funding set aside for unforeseen or one-time costs. Stabilization as a percent of the 6/30/25 operating budget has a minimum goal of 5%. We have met that goal in both FY24 and FY25 with 7.03% and 7.69%. There are 3 capital stabilization metrics. The first is capital stabilization as a percent of the operating budget. The second is the capital stabilization annual appropriation. And the third is the minimum balance in the capital stabilization as a whole. Capital stabilization as a percent of the June 30, 25 operating budget has a minimum range of 2 to 4%, We did not meet this goal in FY '24 at 1.84%, but have met the minimum goal in FY '25 with 2.15%. Our annual appropriation of capital stabilization should be $100,000 or 1% of our annual operating revenues, which for FY '25 was $206,000. In FY '24 and FY '25, the town contributed $50K to capital stabilization. The minimum balance of capital stabilization to achieve should be a minimum of the total amount of asset depreciation on our financial statements, which was $1.153 million in FY '25. The town's FY '24 capital stabilization balance was $421,000 and FY '25 was $502,000. With most of the capital stabilization metrics coming in low, this is an area we'll be putting more focus on in the upcoming years, as capital stabilization has the ability to cover one-time large capital costs or contribute some funds towards large dollar capital projects. This will help us avoid or reduce the need to take on more debt or require debt exclusion overrides. Another metric to measure reserves is our overall reserves as a percent of our operating budget. This would be all reserves, free cash, and all stabilization, including OPEB. It is recommended a minimum reserve balance is between 10 to 14% of the annual operating budget. In FY '24, the town's reserves were 14%, and FY '25 just under 18%. So we have met the minimum and are starting to build total reserves above the minimum, which is what we want to be seeing, especially in capital stabilization. Our OPEB funding goals are the final financial reserves metric. Our goal has been to contribute $85,000 annually, and we have continued to meet this goal. The next key metrics to look at all relate to capital spending and debt limits. Capital investment limits should be 3 to 5% of operating budget. This is how much debt you are paying annually for capital expenditures. Looking at these ratios with all town debt and then separating out the town and the school, we can see that we should limit the amount of new debt the town takes on. By separating them, we can see this new school building has increased these ratios, as will happen whenever a new project is done. This is okay, as long as the ratios continue to go down annually and we are taking this into consideration when capital planning. This brings us to the town's overall debt limits. This would be total outstanding debt. The target is to be within 5 to 7% of the town's annual operating budget, not to exceed 10%. We are a bit over in this one, but should be within range at the end of the current fiscal year. And again, this is due to having a new building project about 5 years ago. Anytime there is a large project, like a new building, it will skew this ratio up. We are actually in great shape considering the size of the project, and these ratios are all going down, which is what we want to see. The final measurement is the only capital and debt ratio we want to actually see go up, and this is the percentage of outstanding debt to be paid within the next 10 years. We want to see that at least 50% of our outstanding debt will be paid in the next 10 years. So we're getting much closer at the end of FY '25 with 40%, and this is due to many of our loans being paid off in 2035. There are a couple that get paid off in 37 and 38, and so this will continue to go up over the next 2 years. So taking all of this information into consideration, we put together some short and long-term financial objectives. In the short term, we would like to focus on getting all annual expenses funded in the operating budget. This would be expenses like OPEB, the police cruiser, and MS4 stormwater. We want to continue our annual free cash goals of not appropriating 3 to 5% and only using free cash for one-time expenditures. We want to continue to have minimal to no increases in debt. Our long-term goals are to maintain the 98 to 99% collection rate, to increase our reserves, especially capital, to fully fund OPEB, and to have continued focus on capital planning in relation to both debt and reserves. That is all, thank you, and if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ellen? Yes, Ed?
Are you I don't know if you are aware of a bill that's supposed to be presented to the legislature, I think it's tomorrow, allow cities and towns to raise the excise tax, and also something about takeout food. But I couldn't get any clarification on what they meant by the takeout food. Nobody seems to know. But it almost looks to me like the state will cut the budget to the individual communities, but yet allow them to raise the excise tax to the people to make up for what the state is going to take away from the budget. Do you follow me on that? Are you aware of
I
that?
follow what you're saying. I am aware of the excise tax one. I haven't looked too far into it because it's more an assessor
It's
thing.
supposed-
Not to say that we wouldn't have to plan for it, but it is usually the case where you're not actually getting more revenue.
But if they allow the municipalities to raise the excise tax rates, I think you can see the handwriting on the wall that they're going to cut the money to the individual municipalities from the state level. And if you read it, nobody could explain to me what this takeout food stuff was. Was this like
I
a
didn't
sub
read the
shop?
takeout food. I don't know what that is.
Okay,
I
nobody,
can look into it further and get back.
don't bother, because nobody at the State House knew what it was about either.
Is this in regards to the meals tax?
What's that?
Is this in regards to the meals tax?
They didn't say meals tax, it said takeout. But I don't know what that refers to. And I talked to 2 or 3 different people, they passed the buck, but nobody knew. But it hasn't been presented yet. Hopefully, when it does, I think it's tomorrow, there'll be a better explanation on it.
Yeah, and we have to see it pass too.
You got, yeah.
Yeah, the only one that I know is the meals tax where we have an option of charging an additional 0.75% on top of the 6.2% that the state already charges.
And that's part of the Municipal Empowerment Act that's before the state legislature, and that what was put aside at one point in time. And that was the meals tax, as well as the lodging tax, as well as the excise tax.
Or as they call it, the community impact fee. And they have the cannabis tax lodged up in that too, the 3%. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Any other questions for Ellen?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm always interested in the longer term, the debt. So I see that you want the percent of outstanding debt to be paid within 10 years to be 50%. Is that all of our debt, including our share of Pentucket as well?
Correct.
Okay. And why is that 50% there? Is that just like a best practice thing or something?
It's best practice. You don't want to take on new debt when you have your debt extending
Yeah.
farther than that.
Okay.
So you want that to be at least 50 before you take on any large projects or large new debt.
Right. So, I mean, obviously with regional schools, we don't have as big a control, like over that. But it is going down. But with the amount of free cash that we've been sort of certifying, I know this was a unusual year,
Well, it's a result of what
Yes.
we've been doing.
Right, well, I mean, yeah, but the permits, the additional, the apartment building permits, maybe the excise tax would repeat. And definitely the financial management is huge. And I like that you're breaking down the free cash into, what can be thought as possibly to be used for one-time things instead of just saying, whatever, It gives us targets and all of that. But within these targets, when we say, that we want this rollover to keep being there, is there a way to say that more succinctly, like if at the town meeting came up with a question about, well, you people certified, close to $2 million of free cash, and you still say we only have this much money to spend, and this person wants more money, why not just give it to them? Is there a way to talk about why you don't want to completely exhaust the free cash Because that's like
Well, I
a,
mean, it's financial policy. It's one of the reasons why we're at 1.8 this year. And the whole goal is to, again, build reserves because, you know, boards have expressed, residents have expressed, when something comes up, we can never pay for it. We either have to do a debt exclusion or an override or, so the goal is to plan much farther ahead and keep building those reserves. And one of the top ways to do that is to not spend all of your free cash. Because again, you're not guaranteed that money next year. We can't guarantee that we won't have to use those contingencies that we have to build into our budget every single year. Something is bound to happen one year. That's why they're there.
okay.
Again, to not hurt the resident and not have to scramble to come up with this money. So if you spend it, and if you especially spend it on, hey, this item in the operating fund needs more money,
Right.
well, you have to come up with that money next year. Well, now it's not here. So now what are we doing? Now we're analyzing override again. Now we're looking into taking from those reserves of stabilization that we've all complained aren't high enough. So you end up in this seesaw effect of never being able to catch up when you use that money for operating purposes.
I like that. Write that down for us, please. No, I do. The last few sentences in particular. So, because that's the kind of thing that, you know, we hear and we like, well, you know, I mean, everybody understands the need to have reserves. But, you know, when we start saying 1.9 million, they're like, that's a lot of reserves. Now, we keep transferring money to
For a
this.
$20 million budget.
No,
it
it's
really
not.
isn't,
I
though.
know. With cost escalating.
I mean, think of personal finances and they say, you know, have, what do they say, 3 years of your net income, whatever goes into the bank account from your pay, have 3 to 5 years of that in a savings account just in case. Think of how long it takes you to get there and how much money that is for just one individual person. Now we're talking about a $20 million town.
Right.
With their main costs are the people who provide the services and the infrastructure, which is roads, large buildings. I mean, these are massive things that need to be maintained. So you really want, I mean, those percentages for those reserves are the absolute minimum to keep your town healthy. You really want those exponentially higher than what those percentages are.
Good answer. When it comes to, just one last question, when it comes to the money that we continue to put in the capital stabilization, so far, we have not used it, is that right? We're still building it?
As long as I've been here, we haven't used it, but we also haven't made it a priority. We seem to either put the equal amount into stabilization and capital, or when capital should really be a lot higher, because again, what is one of our major costs? It's infrastructure, it's capital, it's large equipment, it's large buildings, it's roads. That capital, you really want that higher.
So you would.
Because when you have
yeah.
a big project, you don't have to say, okay, we have to get all debt for that. You can have 5 different funding sources for that project. You can have grants, you can have debt, you can have stabilization. So that's why we want to focus more on that with capital planning. In case there are large projects coming up, we can have a plan in place to, okay, maybe we are going to utilize some of that stabilization 5 years from now, and we know we're going to. So we can plan with how we put money in there, and we can, you know, there are many things you can plan
Right.
in relation to that.
So now everything wouldn't, like, every land purchase wouldn't have to necessarily be a tax override. It could be funded in part through grants,
That is-
stabilization, and, yes. Okay, thank you.
Just
That
to be clear,
explains it.
what are our reserves for capital and stabilization? I believe for capital, we're only at
I think it was 504. I don't have
$500,000.
the-
For stabilization, I think we're just over the $1 million marker. So it's not like these stabilization
Yeah.
reserves are, you know,
have them here.
filled with money as
No,
it is.
they're not, but again, to be prepared when people stop you and ask you, is be able to say, you know, running a $20 million town, you need to be planning ahead each and every step of the way, or else, I think the word used was seesaw, right? We go from catastrophe to okay year to catastrophe, and then again to overrides, because if you don't have reserves, you have to have overrides. That's how it works, right? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, especially when you look at the capital, because our capital plan is far more than what is in our reserves. I mean, just the roofs for these buildings here alone would eat up more than what we saved this year here alone. So, yeah, I think it is important to point that out to the public, to Kathy's point, so they have a better understanding, because 1.8 million does sound like a lot, but when you're looking at the capital, it's really nothing, because it doesn't get us anywhere we need to be in terms of capital. Steve, you have any questions?
No questions. I mean, I think it's great to see that we're meeting a lot of those goals, and I like the fact that we're kind of thinking that far ahead for all the reasons that you just said. There's a lot of things that, you know, we try to plan for, and in order to prevent issues from becoming unexpected issues, we have to sometimes address them, you know, in a more timely fashion. And I think if we can continue to build the reserves to be able to do some of that, we're putting ourselves in a good spot.
Yes, we don't require any more debt. So, thank you very much. And now we're going to come back to the review of the town administrator goals, or evaluation form first. I think that's, we left that off with you, Kathy, I think.
Did we?
You-
Right. I'm trying to think now. So we talked about revising the scale a little bit, I thought. And I think Becky did submit some notes to me on that. We were going to change it from what it is right now, right? Is that something we all agreed on or not?
Yes.
Okay, all right. But the categories themselves seem to fit still? Yes or no? I thought we did,
What do you got, Steve?
So after our last meeting, I wanted to kind of take a step back and do a couple of things. First, I wanted to look at town administrator bylaw and make sure that what we were evaluating kind of fell in line with the expectations that were set out in the bylaws. I think it's important to evaluate and track things that are actually relevant to the role. It also occurred to me that we should understand how the town is evaluating employees, department heads and things like that. So I did reach out to the town administrator and got some feedback from her on what the process is today and what the process is going to look like, I believe, starting next year, Rebecca? And kind of moving away from a number-based system, ranking system, focusing a little bit more on other factors like accomplishments and growth opportunities. And the other thing that also occurred to me is having done a lot of evaluations, both having had to receive evaluations and provide evaluations to employees, is that it didn't seem like our current process had anything for a self-evaluation form, where we were soliciting feedback from the town administrator on her accomplishments and things that she had done. So I did hand out a small packet that I put together. It was not in our packet tonight just because I finished it late, and if folks need time to review it, that's certainly fine. But what I tried to do here was basically break things down. First of all, I set an example of a possible scale and really tried to simplify that into three things: exemplary, effective, and development needed. And then I broke it down, similar to what we talked about related to how we want to set up the board's goals in the future, but I broke it down into high-level categories that track to the bylaw. So strategic leadership and governance, financial management and budget execution, personnel and organizational management, operations and service delivery, community and intergovernmental relations, and communication and transparency, and then some open-ended questions for the board on strengths and contributions, development opportunities. So I wanted to present that to the board and get some feedback. Obviously, there's, we can certainly discuss it and make some changes. And then I did include the self-evaluation form. You'll notice in that when you review it that there's no ratings there, because I think there, what I wanted to focus on was providing an opportunity for the town administrator to give us feedback on how she felt she had performed in those areas, so that we could use that in formulating our own evaluation. And then there was a final summary form that's probably not all important. The last page I did include, and I think the town uses this as well, I did include the SMART goals framework, which is used by a lot of organizations and a lot of, I think, towns and cities for developing goals, just more as a piece of reference material. I thought it would be good to understand that when we're going through the evaluation process. So again, I just presented this, I gave everyone a copy. Happy to discuss it, happy to give folks time to review it. But I thought it would make sense to track to what is in the bylaw, and then also kind of be in line, have the town administrator's evaluation be in line with how other department heads and other employees within the town are evaluated.
What do you think, Ed?
Well, just a question to Steve. Did you get a copy from the town administrator of the evaluation form that she uses with the other town employees?
I did.
You did, okay. And that's incorporated in your paperwork?
That's the current one, but she also gave me some information on what they're moving to going forward. So I looked at the existing one and then incorporated some thoughts from that, as well as what the future is going to look like.
I think it's great making it consistent with what everybody's opinion. Kathy?
Well, I would need more time on this because, like I said, I just got this 2 minutes before the meeting. And I'd, like to give it some consideration for the fact that due to the nature of the position, this evaluation is done within a public forum. So I think that changes it slightly from the evaluations that are done within a company or within this town hall. And I think that matters, and I think that makes it different. So I'd like time to look through all this because I want to make sure that it is worthwhile and that it also is reflective of what our intention is, which is to be able to give feedback to our town administrator, who is our highest ranking administrator, as to how this person has done meeting the goals that were set for the year. So, yeah, I would need quite a bit more time to look through this than 2 minutes before the meeting.
Yeah, which I think is fair. I mean,
Yeah.
it's important to get this information and distribute it and discuss it. But I think it's well put together, and I like how it corresponds with the town bylaw. And I also like how it's a little more streamlined with a little less kickback that we had seen with some of the others. So I know that was one of the goals that the town administrator had set forth for herself to evaluations. Yes?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Kathy, what difference does it make whether it's out there for the public or whether it's not, as the valuations that the town administrator does are not shared with the general public or the selectmen, but what difference does it make whether it is shared or not?
Are you asking me a question?
Yes, he's curious about,
So could he
Whether it makes-
phrase it
whether it makes a
specifically?
difference.
What is his question? I don't quite understand it. He
The
said-
question is, what difference does it make whether it's shared with the public as the sheets the last couple of years for the administrator, as opposed to those that the administrator does with the other employees is not shared with the public? What difference does it make whether it's shared with the public or not?
Or not? So you want to know what difference it makes? What, to me or to you?
Yeah, what
or-
difference does it make?
Well, it's kind of a vague question. What difference does it make? I guess, I don't know yet. I'd have to spend time to look this over and think about that. That was just a question I raised as a reason to have a little more time on this rather than 2 minutes before the meeting, because that's when I saw this for the first time. So I think that whenever you're in the public forum, you're always going to be thinking about choosing your words correctly and conveying your messages succinctly. And I would just like to make sure that the evaluation process fits into that. Okay, and that's it. And again, I have not had an opportunity to review this prior to tonight's meeting. And we have one member absent as well.
Yeah, I think what Ed was just trying to get at, and then in terms of transparency, it shouldn't make a difference whether it was behind closed doors or in public meeting for the evaluation, because it's meant to be out there for everybody to see. So I think that was the big thing that Ed was trying to put across, and I understand where Kathy's coming from in terms of making sure that we still have a high level of respect, which should also carry over behind closed doors. So yeah, it's fair enough, and like I said, it's not that we're trying to get anybody not to look at this or spend time with it. We definitely want everybody to take it home and study it and make some changes or suggestions. But I think Steve did a great job, and did a lot of work, and he should be recognized for it.
Yes, can I ask that we get a digital copy of it as well, please?
Yep, I believe.
Thank you.
it's on that.
Yes, we will get a,
Yeah, actually, on the topic of digital copies for just a minute. if it would be
yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
I know one of the things we talked about at a previous meeting related to the town administrator evaluation was using Google Forms. Was thinking about that just from a compliance and security perspective, and where the town isn't standardized on Google, and we don't have authentication, auditability, or retention policies for Google Forms, we should probably look at whether we can do something similar with our current collaboration platform, as opposed to going outside of the standard that we have. I think there's probably some possibilities there. I think it would just probably give us more control over the form, how it's accessed, who can modify it, and what, if any, retention policies we have to have in place. I did just want to mention that, because it was something I was thinking about when I was working on this.
Something to keep in a note of. I'm sure Rebecca will update us on whether or not that's necessary. For a document of this type in terms of security, I don't think it's super important. But I don't know what the retention schedule is required, or if there is a retention schedule required. So maybe we'll get that information for next meeting as well. All right, for,
You want a motion to table that?
no, we'll just carry it over to the next meeting. I don't think we need a motion for that. Review of town administrator goals for fiscal year 2026.
So tonight, you'll see in your packet, I have put together my fiscal year 2026 goals. I had provided a document to the board prior during the budget season, which standard department procedure would have been. But I did get an opportunity to take a closer look at them, and I realized that I was very busy when I wrote them, and I did not like them. So I did take a closer look at what I had put forward, and I did make a couple of revisions, and it was also based upon a lot of the feedback that I heard from the select board in terms of measurable goals and making sure that they're things that we can actually see the progress in moving forward. So for the first goal, you'll see is to support sustainability, growth, and preserve Groveland's character. And one of the main focuses will be to focus on the comprehensive master plan, which received extensive amounts of public engagement and also was work that we performed with the planning board, the conservation commission, the zoning board, and other community boards here in the town. So I'd really like to take a closer look at the actual transition plan that was put forward as part of this and kind of break it down into a little bit more of a tangible setting so that we can follow up with some of these goals that we had put forward. So in working with our new platform, OpenGov, I'm hoping to take a more refined approach to taking that and putting it online and working with the community and engaging them in the strategies as we move forward through the process. So there will be a way to actually follow along as we start to accomplish these goals and a way for the public to also interact with that information, whether it be adding additional placements on an aerial image, or adding survey questions, or adding an allocation of budgetary funds that they would like to see. So I will be working closely with the town planner, conservation agent, the planning board, zoning board, and the conservation commission, and putting that together for the board. The second goal is to strengthen communication across town government. When I first got here about 4 years ago in this particular role, I found that there was a lot of departments that were operating in their own little silos, and it was one of my missions to try and bring people together and to collaborate. So one of the first things we did is we had the department head coordination, and we have a bi-monthly meeting, and then we have a bi-monthly individual meeting with the actual departments themselves. So we can get more into the details when we have our individual meetings, but we're also working together when we're in a group setting so that we can advise people on what we're working on and bring certain initiatives forward. So I'd like to continue that. That has been very successful. In the beginning of the year, we also talked a lot about internal communication platform. So we have initiated a shared point site, and we are working to get documents up there so the department had to have access. And then also, because this is the first time that with the town administrator bylaw, I will be putting forward the budget, trying to work in putting that process in alignment with being cognizant of the process that was there before and making sure that it's a smooth transition moving forward. And that takes into consideration, again, the new platform of using OpenGov and getting that budget integration forward so that we can make sure that everybody is aware of where we are in that process, and we're sharing that information with departments, boards, and the public. The third goal was to modernize technology and infrastructure. As we saw in the beginning of the fiscal year, we did have that third-party audit by CBiz, and they did put forward a couple of things that we need to address. So I'd like to take that one step further, in addition to creating an IT working group so that we can put forward those recommendations and develop a phased 5-year technology improvement plan. For the fourth goal, it's to expand online presence and access to information. As you'll see, we had moved to a new website platform. We are now using Revise, and we have had an opportunity to take a look, but there's been so many things that have come up already between the 175th and Pumpkin Fest. We haven't really been able to dive into that as much as I would like, including being able to bring back the town administrator newsletter, which I did have a lot of positive feedback about, so I would like to bring that back. So we are looking to make sure that we're getting all of the information transferred, and we're updating the information, and that we're making sure that we're adding as much as we possibly can to be more user-friendly and interactive with the residents. We're also looking to expand our social media presence. So typically, if there's something that had come about, we would post something on social media as needed. But in order to maintain a presence, as many of you will see on different various platforms, you need to have a continuous presence. So making sure that we can update the public on necessary items and not to become outdated at the same time. So we are working on a more streamlined communication plan to use both the social media as well as the website effectively. The fifth goal is implement employee training. When I came here too, there has been no employee training that's offered to Town Hall collectively. We have had open meeting law trainings with Town Council for certain boards, and they will come in and do that. But in terms of other types of training, such as sexual harassment, workplace bullying, escalation, de-escalation techniques, leadership and management, there's really not much offered for departments unless they seek them out individually. So I would like to work to bring annual trainings into the town hall for town hall staff and extend that out to obviously the library as well as to the police and fire. So I'm hoping to get things up and running. I did have a great conversation with All One Health, which we have access to through our EAP, and that's through Maya that we have for our insurance. And they're looking to come on site and provide some of those trainings in the beginning of December. There's also a catalog of other webinars and things that we are going to make available to our employees as well, so we're looking forward to that. And then the sixth goal I have for you is one that I was hesitant to put on because it's not really measurable, so to speak, because it's been such a challenge, is to actively pursue resolution of the Valley Screw property. As you know, we've been trying for many years to get things going with that particular property. We have made some headway in terms of our communications with the EPA as well as Mass DEP, talking about forgiving the liens, talking about other funding sources in terms of additional demolition of the existing building. We have not had much success and steps forward, and with the federal government and those employees with the EPA being on furlough, it makes it a little bit more difficult to bring things forward, but we are still dedicated to that goal, and we're still putting together as much information that we can on our end to bring that forward. So I do think that that's a really important thing for us to continue to keep in our vision and moving forward, and to not let that fall behind just because we're hitting a few walls. So while a little risky to put it on there in terms of actually achieving much, I still think it's a worthy cause, and hopefully we can make a little bit of room in terms of what we do moving forward. So those are the goals that I had put together for the fiscal year. As you can see, some of those things have already been put in motion, some of those things have actually been accomplished, and I do look forward to bringing the rest of them to you at the end of the fiscal year for my new performance evaluation.
Never stop swinging the sledgehammer.
Never stop.
Eventually, that wall that we hit will crack. Absolutely.
Are we talking about Valley Screw still?
Valley Screw, yes. It's something we have to keep doing.
It's
Hammering
falling,
away at it.
it's falling
Ed.
down.
I'm all set.
You all set,
Good-
Kathy?
Good job, I think.
These are great. They cover like all the major areas I feel like that people have spoken about in the last year or so. And, it's really broad and yet specific. So I think it is measurable. I think they're good, smart goals. I like them.
Steve?
Yep, I agree. I think they're fantastic.
I agree as well. So, we're all comfortable with accepting these goals?
So I'll make a motion to accept the town administrator's goals as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent.
Yep.
And with that, we'll move on to the creation of a sustainability committee. And we're gonna see if we can establish a charge.
All right, so we're going past all these project things then? Are we doing,
Project plan was after an E.
oh, okay, mine it was different. All right,
Yeah, the way it came in the.
I think they're just backwards in the
A little backwards
packet.
there.
that's okay. Can roll with it. So, just the overview of this is, I think as everybody well knows, I said when trash and recycling is done, we should consider, a broader committee aimed at continuing some of the work around sustainability and preservation of our community, preservation of our resources. So what is, what is in the packet today is the first document is by Select Member Steve. Did a lot of work, really thankful for that. He brought up some really good points. And the second document is one that I put together, again, looking across at what the towns are doing, what areas are needed to be looked at. And included in there too, I did some research on, when you ask people to volunteer in a community, how do you create a collaborative atmosphere where residents want to volunteer, want to serve on different committees, hopefully enjoy their time spent when they go to meetings, and, feel that it's manageable within their time frame, within what they can commit. I think sometimes residents veer off from volunteering for a couple of reasons. One that I've heard a lot is, they're concerned they don't have the time. They're very concerned that they don't want to commit to something and then not have the time. And I think making and designing a committee that is flexible and allowing for talented residents to be on it without having to give up a night every single month, I think is key towards creating sustainable committees. The second thing is to make sure that what the mission is, what the responsibilities are, and how it's going to work is very clearly dictated so that volunteers don't feel like they're out there in a vague area where what they're doing isn't valued or important toward the mission of the town. Everybody likes to volunteer, and I saw that firsthand in the volunteers who dropped off what seemed like a million Halloween costumes for the costume swap. I've never seen so many bags of costumes, and wow. But I mean, it goes to show that we have a very, very, very generous town, resident-wise. And when you ask them to do something that they feel they can accomplish within an amount of time that they can live with, you know, that they can balance their personal life, their family life, their work life, whatever they're trying to balance, they're more than glad to jump in and do something for the town. So this committee, I feel like, should be something that's fun to be on and is also geared towards an interest more in sustainability, in resources, conservation, redirecting trash, all those good things, conservation of water, electricity, all of that. So towards that end, I know we both have a mission statement there, and it's fairly similar in nature, the mission, the purpose, whatever you want to call it. But I also added a vision statement because I thought that that would matter. You know, why are we doing this? Why bother? And the vision was to create a culture of sustainability that will be fully integrated into our community for the benefit of the present and the future generations. So it's not just all about who's here right now, but who's going to be here 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, and look back and say, I'm glad they did that, you know, because otherwise this wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be here, and this town would look a lot different. So I think, you know, I met with Steve briefly before the meeting, and we definitely have some commonalities. I was geared towards a larger committee. Steve, I think, was geared toward a somewhat smaller committee, saying that it was really difficult to get the financial board to get 4 members. So 9 members, I mean, getting 5 members in, so 4 members was easier. One compromise might be everybody seems to want to be an alternate.
Yep, agreed.
So if we got people with the right backgrounds, you could have a 7-member committee with 2 alternates, would be a nice blending of these 2 approaches, and potentially pick up a couple more residents that weren't quite sure they'd have the time, but we might get them on the hook and get them involved in our town, which would be good. I could go either way on the terms. I went back, I started out with the staggered terms, as Steve has in his, and then I veered back toward just 1-year terms. I'm more or less indifferent. Whatever this whole board feels is good.
Could I comment on that, or?
Sure, go ahead. Oh, absolutely.
So the main reason that I chose to go with staggered terms is just because I do see this as a long-term goal, and I think having continuity year over year would be helpful with a committee of this nature. Some of the projects or things that they may be involved with may not be finished in a year. So I thought that having staggered terms would make sense there. You know, not that we like to see it, but obviously if someone only wants to do a year, they could take a role and then resign. That is an option. But I think having staggered terms just gives a little more continuity across a committee of this nature.
Like I said, I could go either which way. I feel like as far as continuity, it'd be nice to see some of our resident volunteers from the trash and recycling jump in and share some of the research that was done along the lines of redirecting and, you know, lowering the amount of trash tonnage and improving recycling options. And of course, I'm sure that they also have backgrounds in conservation and water and electricity. That's a new one. Be nice to get somebody with that background involved. On the minutes issue, I got a little more specific because I have heard from people on committees that nobody wants to do the minutes. It's a drag. Everybody sits there. Everybody wants to be the chair, but nobody wants to do the minutes. So I did write in that to start it out, it would be nice to provide a digital form for the minutes to be put into, and then our town administrator shared and showed me that if you run the meeting through the Zoom, it creates this transcript by, more or less by category, and you could cut and paste into a form that we provide. And perhaps then that would help ease the pain of doing the minutes, because it does become a drag, but it's such a necessary component to record what is discussed and what are the ideas that are being brought forward at that meeting. We both put down quarterly meetings. I put down do quarterly meetings. Steve is putting at least quarterly meetings. I envisioned a committee, if it was larger, 7 with 2 alternates or 9, that would be able to meet quarterly and bring together pairs of committee members who had collaborated in between on topics, so that you wouldn't have to keep posting and dragging everybody in all the time. I didn't get specific on every single category, as Steve did.
Could I speak to that for one moment?
Yeah, I just wanted to finish what I was summarizing about what I did, if that's okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. So my idea was to have focus areas and to just give a general, natural resources, including but not limited to open space, low impact infrastructure, energy efficiency, obviously, reduction renewable, waste reduction, other environmental areas. But I did include a definition of sustainability, which I think would be important to any document that we did produce, that sometimes everybody joins a committee and could be mixed understanding of what this committee is about. And I wanted to make it as clear as possible that sustainability is defined as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Sustainability is all about improving the quality of life for all Groveland residents while best positioning the town to obtain the benefits of the 3 commonly accepted pillars of sustainability: social, economic, and environmental. Implicit in this is the idea that Groveland must pay consistent attention to responsible stewardship in order to assure its long-term prosperity. So along those lines, I feel that like the bell has been rung. We've gotten the attention of the residents. There was a lot of back and forth on the cart size, which is actually good because it means that people are aware that things are changing, that we're moving towards a different type of trash pickup, and alongside of that will be this consistent trash cart size that must be provided. And so once you've gotten their attention, I think this is the perfect moment then to keep putting out information and education. So one of the most important initial responsibilities, I think, would personally be to continue to get that education out there as the new contract is brought into focus, and to find out, what can we recycle, what can we not recycle, and to look for more ways to divert and see if other towns have come up with other ideas. I did put the authority and responsibilities into a succinct paragraph, and I did say they would support the town administrator and the select board in the creation and implementation of sustainability initiatives. It's in its advisory role. The committee would have access to a town website, which would include resources, information regarding sustainability, and the committee can request through its chair a request to the town administrator for additional information. And I put down through its chair just because I know how busy our town administrator is, and I know that there are a lot of people trying to get the town administrator's time. 5-member board of select members, sometimes each one of us is calling the town administrator during the week. So as we create another somewhat good-sized committee, I think it's important to try and streamline the communications. I think that if we don't do that, it's possible that we will have some of the same problems that we've had in the past with committees, like the Capital Committee felt that it wasn't being valued and they all resigned. We've seen this over and over in Groveland. So I'm trying to set up for a committee that can feel valued and have a mission that makes sense, and a way of communicating and a way of getting information that also makes sense. And to me, this seemed the most succinct, fairest way to do it. You could certainly say, well, if they're meeting quarterly, what if they have a question or they want information in between meetings? As long as there's no discussion, it's not an open meeting law violation to contact your chair on a committee and ask the chair to request information or see if information is available through the town administrator on a topic. That you can do without a meeting. You just can't discuss it. Okay? And then, of course, Steve, I think, wants to go into his in more detail, so if you'd like to go ahead, Steve, go for it.
Sure. Yeah, and I did want to, I do agree with Kathy that I think we could put some language in place around communication between the committee and the town administrator and running that through the chair. I think the natural place for that would be kind of where we define what the chair is in the version of the document that I had. I was a little more, and I think most other components is around just organization and composition. We're pretty closely aligned on. I did take a slightly different view, or slightly different approach, I should say, to putting together the responsibilities, because one is, I think, clarity of purpose tends to motivate people, so I wanted to be pretty detailed in the areas that I think that the committee should focus on. I'm happy to go through those kind of point by point, but it was things like strategic planning, policy advisement, energy efficiency and renewables, waste reduction and recycling, water conservation and natural resources, climate resilience and preparedness, community outreach and education, grants and funding, but I'll put a star on that because I want to talk about that a little bit more, coordination and collaboration, and then, additional things that may come up. I think that one of the things that having that clarity may allow is for more people to be interested in taking part in this. If you ask 5 different people what sustainability means to them, you're probably going to get 5 different answers. By laying it out with a little more prescriptively, I think that may make it more appealing, because someone may say, oh, I didn't realize that the sustainability committee was focused on water conservation. Maybe they should, but maybe they didn't. So by laying those out kind of point by point, I think it gives a little more clarity. Within the document, and I'll go to, any questions on that or any thoughts on that before I go to the next thing that I wanted to mention?
No, I think, Steve, I think you did a nice job itemizing and, putting it forward. We talked a little bit about the issue of grants and
Yep,
funding.
and I do want to fix that.
Okay, so you're going to go back
Yeah,
to that?
so-
Yeah, okay.
On that one, the way that Kathy and I spoke a little bit about it, and the way that it was written, I think I'd like to strike out where it says, town policy requires that grants exceeding $5,000 receive prior approval from the town administrator. Just strike that out completely. And then modify the next line to say, the committee itself will not directly apply for grants or commit town resources without approval of the town administrator. Just because there is what we don't want to have happen is the committee think that they're empowered to go out and apply for grants. Where we need their help is identifying grants and opportunities, and then also with helping put together the material to apply for those grants. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. I think it was a really good point when Kathy and I spoke about this. The other thing, just as a general thing throughout the document, is there's a few places where I mentioned charter. We should just change that word to charge. I think there's 3 places that it's in there, 4 places that it's in there, just because of how our bylaws are organized. And the other thing that we both had in our report that Kathy, I don't think you touched on, but I think is really important, is the reporting aspect around an annual report, that the committee shall prepare an annual report summarizing its activities, achievements, and any recommendations over the past year. This report will be submitted to the select board and town administrator and may be presented at a select board meeting. It may also be available for inclusion in the town's annual report, because I think it's important for people to know what this committee is doing and working on, and I think that will further motivate people to get involved. But beyond that, I think we were pretty close on this.
I think we were really very, very close. So, yeah, it can be a charter because we're not based on
Right.
charter, but I would leave it up to the town administrator what you want to call it, this whatever. charge.
Yeah, so that's just
whatever.
a simple-
Charge is fine, we're just not we're not chartered. It's a much bigger endeavor, but glad to see this get off the ground, and I think, Steve, if we want to just blend this for the next meeting and wait till we have a full committee to do it, I think we could blend it, based on whatever
I
else.
have a question
Sure, go for it.
on the policy advisement.
Yep.
That was one of the only places you didn't put through the TA. I
Oh,
don't know if there was a reason.
No, policy advisement, research and advise the select board, town administrator, and other boards and policies. I think, that's a good point. Okay, I thought I had caught that. So we can just take the language that's everywhere else and put it in there. But, just me, it would just basically say,
I just didn't know if you thought that was.
no, it should be, I
Not
think
necessary?
I think it should be. I guess the only,
research and advise, so it's through the town administrator.
yeah.
Yeah, just say
When you're
through
dealing with
the town
committees and
administrator.
boards, though, it's just a matter of getting on their agenda.
Well, that's
through
what,
their
that's
chair.
the one thing, I think, I'm just trying to think back to when I put that together, if that's why, because if, for example, the Conservation Committee said, hey, could somebody from the Sustainability Committee come in, whether that would be, it would be okay for that to be direct, or if it needed to be. What I did, well, you know what, actually, I do remember why I did that. I originally had and other town departments and boards in there, and I took out town departments because that would go through the town administrator. But other boards could be on a board-to-board basis as opposed to needing, I don't necessarily think, and Rebecca, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't necessarily think you need to be involved if the Recreation Committee wants somebody from the Sustainability Committee to come in, or would you want to be involved in that?
No, I think just as a matter of courtesy, just so that I know
Yeah.
what's happening, but as to the involvement, definitely not, that's,
Yeah, so that's why I had
That's
left it out.
perfect. That makes a lot of sense. Yes, Ed?
Look, looking over all of these items, I don't see that this is necessary. First of all, we have a capable town administrator, we have capable department heads and employees, and I think as you read over all of these, I think I counted up here 10, in most of these, it's through the town administrator, coordination with state or federal agencies, the climate preparedness must be done through the town administrator. Conservation Commission here on water. I think we have this as we do now. Maybe something like this could be presented as like a policy, but with the five-member board, selectmen, the town administrator, the department heads, I think they can handle this without a separate, another committee. It just seems like a duplication of services, and the town administrator, the department heads, I'm sure every one of the department heads is working on grants and funding, and they probably know a heck of a lot better than people on this committee of what's available. That's part of their job, and I don't think we need, anybody else working on that. They're probably doing most of this stuff as it is. Water conservation and natural resources. We have a able conservation commission that handles that stuff. Water reduction and recycling, bingo. That's handled by several different, but with the, as I said, with the department heads, the town administrator, and the departments, I think they're better capable of handling these 10 items than a separate committee that just adds to the bureaucracy.
All right, noted. So I think it's probably be real important for you and Steve to decide on what you want to combine this to look like,
Yeah,
and get it out to the board as quickly as possible so the board can review it and make a final decision,
yes, but I also,
especially with Rebecca.
right, I wanted to just touch on the concept of bureaucracy. So a five-member select board gives us more members to do things, yes. And as you can see from tonight's meeting, there's a lot of members here that are doing a lot of work in between meetings. Quite impressive work. And so, but another role of the select board and another reason for expanding it to 5 members was to hopefully be become more inclusive for residents, have residents want to become involved in their town government in various fashions. Because even though we have completely competent and talented department heads who do work and deliver huge services at a very low cost, it should be recognized that we're still very, very small staff in Groveland compared to other larger towns or even towns our size that have more money. We survive in large part based on volunteers. And where do these volunteers come from? Where do we get people who will come and run for this board? They come from joining other committees typically first and getting involved and learning about the town and then saying, gee, I'd like to do some more. You know, maybe they'll never want to do more than a quarterly meeting, but if we don't open up our town government to our residents and allow them to have input in an advisory fashion, then I feel that as a select board, we're not really fulfilling our responsibilities as we're supposed to. We are supposed to be transparent. We are supposed to allow residents various ways to voice their opinions and their thoughts. And one of those ways is by becoming a volunteer on a committee and being given something that's important and worthwhile and something hopefully that these members are particularly interested in. We don't have anything else like this in town on a volunteer basis that has this kind of what I'd call a relaxed meeting schedule where you wouldn't have to be out every single month if you didn't want to. So a lot of other towns, and I'm not saying we all have to jump off the cliff because everybody else did, but there's a reason why so many towns have this type of committee, and it tends to be larger, and it tends to include a lot of people who aren't already on other town boards, which is great. So I like to keep our minds open. I don't want to create more red tape and more headaches for our departments or our town administrator. And I think if Steve and I work on this together, we'll come back with something that does just that.
Well, I think that's the important thing. The important thing is now you have a group of people that are outside of this building, not in direct communications with the staff that's here working. They can come up with ideas. They can filter through either Rebecca, the town administrator, or the select board itself through your updates. And it just gives a different avenue to get more information and more participation. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's really well put together. But going with that, I probably would allow for 4 alternates instead of just 2, just because
Okay.
you wouldn't have to worry about turning anyone away, and it's not all that important if it doesn't get filled.
So do you mean 7 members and 4 alternates?
Yeah,
then?
sure.
Yeah, I can do that.
The one thing I was going to add to, just to the conversation around the need for it, I mean, I think if you look at our department heads, they're fantastic. They're experts in their domain. I'm an expert in technology, but I don't necessarily know anything about sustainability as it pertains to technology. So I think having those outside viewpoints is really important, whether it's just, information gathering or sharing different ideas. And I think that's one of the reasons why we both made it a point to mention that we want to have people that have experience in the area, in the core areas, because they'll bring something to the table, perhaps a viewpoint that we might not otherwise have had. So that's all.
Perfect. All right, with that, we're going to move on to the community preservation projects.
Yes, so let's first start with Adam Haywood, who is the chair of the CPC and currently taking over the Vito Museum project.
Nice.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing me out here. What we have going on is at last year's town meeting, an expired project was extended to complete the Vito Museum. However, running into some budgetary issues and being tied to a scope that wasn't written by anybody on the committee at this point in time, I met with them and volunteered to take the project over to kind of see it to the end. And we had a meeting last week and decided the best course of action would be to not take the money that was approved at town meeting last year, tied to an old scope and to come up with a new scope and go forward as a new project for this year. That being said, I believe you all received my little sketch, just basically looking for permission to continue taking over the front vestibule area, as well as we want to remove one of the sets of exterior doors out the front there, and come into the, I guess what would be the vestibule area now, in between the two sets of doors, and make that part of the Vito Museum.
Do we have that sketch? I don't see it in the packet.
Yes,
It's in the packet?
for the sustainability.
Oh, yeah, there it is. I got
I'll
you.
put it up on the screen as
It's
well.
just not showing up on my,
Okay. I know.
it's just not displaying on my.
Do you know why there's two sets of doors there?
It used to be exterior doors, and then they built the addition on.
They just left them there?
They just left them there.
Yeah.
Doesn't offer any additional insulation or anything?
No.
No.
I spoke with Sam. He happened to be passing by as we were meeting. There's no reason to keep them. They're not fire separation doors. There's no reason for them to be there.
So a question. So one of the, it may have been when I was a long time ago on the financial board, but I recall that part of the difficulty with where the Vito was placed was the direct sun.
Yeah,
On-
so in one of the many past Vito projects, they put a coating on the windows.
Okay.
So now the UV is not coming in from the sun, damaging the Vito.
Okay.
So that's now protected. So as part of this project, they would like to build a platform
To raise it up.
to raise it up so you can see the whole thing from outside.
Right.
So build a platform to raise it up to the windowsill level, place the Vito on top of that, do some strategic spotlighting. I think we can do it for the most part with what's existing out there for wiring without adding a huge cost, and just change some fixtures. And then we're looking at putting some glass display cases in that vestibule area in between, as well as some storyboards on the wall, kind of showing, the story of the Vito and what
Yep.
it is. Which I knew nothing about this. I just knew it was a project that has been dragging on for a long time, and I just want to see it done.
Yeah.
So I kind of hopped in, but I got a crash course on, on the stories behind that thing, and it's got some stories to tell. I was very impressed.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a ballpark on what this might entail cost-wise?
No, we literally met last week. I threw this together. If I had to throw a number at it, I'd say you're looking somewhere between 50 and 65,000.
That's not too bad.
And the money that would be going back that we did not use is 52,825.
No, that seems,
So I mean, it was more getting away from the old scope. The old scope involved taking out windows and blocking them in, and none of that needs to be done.
yeah, yeah. So,
So, and then, we're also working on quotes from 2017, and here it is, 2026.
yeah.
26, 25, whatever it is,
Well, we'll be in 26 before you know it.
soon enough.
But, yeah, no, it seems like a good idea. It seems like this would create the kind of honor and preservation that people were asking for, for this particular
Yeah, like, this
wooden box, the Vito.
this thing's gone out to, different projects 4 or 5 times now, and it, always passes with overwhelming support.
Yes.
I want to see it through to the end
Okay.
and finish it.
It sounds reasonable. It sounds like a great idea.
Can I just ask on the window coatings?
Yes.
Are those permanent? Do they have to be maintained?
It's like a tint film. I imagine that it probably does have some level of lifespan. I can't speak to it, but
Just curious if that's something we need to, like, track over time, like, it needs to be replaced in 10 years or something like that.
I will certainly ask the question.
But has the historic, I don't know whether it's the commission or the club, I'm not sure who I'm speaking of, but have they weighed in on this at all?
Yeah, no,
Good.
so Claire is is the head of the veto committee.
Oh, okay,
She
Of course she
she's
is.
waiting very much, but I think
yeah,
she's got a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, yeah.
I think she sees like one less thing on the plate, but she's very much involved.
Yeah.
I actually met with her at Washington Hall yesterday and showed her the sketch, and, she's tracking down someone that's actually going to do the restoration of the veto. I'm going to kind of handle the construction end of it.
oh, okay,
And then hopefully everything times out, that thing goes out to get refurbished. We build a nice little room for it, it comes back all done, we plop it on its table, and
and you're
Game
gonna
over.
put some signage at the front of the town hall for
we're,
people coming?
we're gonna put some over what will be the interior doors going into it. They want to do a nice carved wood sign,
Oh,
which I
okay.
guess would be period correct for when the veto was.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think we should maybe incorporate a veto museum sign somewhere out I guess what would be the back here, where the parking lot is, where people come in, so that, people know it's there.
Okay,
Sounds good. From what quick little Google, a commercial window tint typically lasts 10 to 15 years. But I don't know what type of tint they put on there.
So I'll look into that and see, when that was installed and what was installed. And, maybe that's something we add into the project. Sure.
Anybody else have any questions on the veto project? No, so we'll move on to Shanahan.
Yes. So these two projects are projects that we've been working on in regards to the Shanahan Field. We are looking at a bathroom facility replacement in collaboration with the Groveland Youth Soccer League. If you'll all remember, the Groveland Youth Soccer had put forward an application for CPC funding to install the facilities that are currently there.
Yeah.
However, the current style of the units are RV style. They're costly to maintain. They're inadequate for the number of users, and they are not connected to sewer. It's actually a tank that we need to pump. So there is, again, maintenance costs associated with such. So based upon the communications with the league, we had said that, if we're not able to get suitable restrooms, we're going to have to close down the restrooms. And they had asked if there's any other alternative options that we could come up with. So working with the highway superintendent and the building and facility supervisor, we had taken a look and we had come up with the proposal that you'll see in part of your packet, which is like pre-existing precast concrete structure that you can be either a single unit or a dual unit. And then it also has the utility connections, and then we also included the demolition cost. So in conversations with the Community Preservation Committee, they had asked us to take a look at a couple of things, and we're putting those forward and considering those as part of our CPC application. But they had also asked us to take a closer look at the Washington Park bathroom facilities. And again, my sincerest apologies on the actual agenda and your little divider. It says Washington Hall, Washington Park. That is not correct. It is Washington Park. They currently do not have restroom facilities. The Groveland Youth Baseball rent porta potties seasonally, and they lock those throughout when they're not in use. So the Community Preservation Committee had made mention of the fact that there's others who utilize that area. There's the playground that's over there, and it would be nice that if we're going to be, enhancing the facilities at the Shanahan, and we already have great facilities over at the Pines, to take a look at and take into consideration what we could potentially do over at Washington Park. So we haven't come up with a cost estimate yet. We're still working with the vendor to exactly see what the cost implications would be, but we are looking to submit an application as requested by the CPC for that location as well. So those two applications are in draft form. And then there's also a draft application for the basketball court improvements over at the Bagnell Elementary School. So I was approached by one of the parents over there who takes their son and they play basketball, and the courts are not suitable for them to be doing so. And with the playground that we've made an investment over there and some of the other improvements that we've made in other recreational areas, such as over behind the fire station, and then as well as what we're doing over at the Pines, they asked if there was anything that we could do for the basketball court. So as you'll see in the attached conceptual, we also took into consideration making it a full court, and then also adding another area where we could do Foursquare and add some additional features and enhancements from a recreational standpoint. And you'll see that we also tried to identify some parking, because I know one of the other complaints that we've heard from parents is that, you know, if somebody's utilizing the playground off hours, a mom will drive up and she'll park in front of the playground and take her other child to go play on the playground, but you're not necessarily supposed to park there, so other people who are utilizing the space can't use the space because the car's there, because there's no dedicated parking near the actual playground area. So designating that parking and making sure that there's guardrails and security measures put in place to protect that area. And we did reach out to the Bagnell Elementary School, the principal, as well as the PRSD facilities to ask if they would be in favor, and they are very much on board and support the project moving forward. So one of the reasons that we have brought all of these projects before you is that all of these sites are municipally owned. So the only authority to move forward with these applications would be for the select board to vote to allow us to put an application forward.
I have a question on the Shanahan bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
I know right now they're not currently ADA compliant,
Correct,
but they would be after.
correct.
Does that include a path to the parking lot?
It does, actually. As part of that, as part of the parking enhancements that we had made, we had closed off the gate area to encourage individuals to utilize the parking lot instead of parking alongside the street where it was becoming
They have it,
problematic.
it's packed, it's nice to see.
So we had talked about if we did do that, where we are providing the accessibility, and we did talk about a pathway down.
Perfect. Steve?
So I have a couple of questions. On both of the bathroom projects, so I guess first and foremost, I know we've had some issues with the bathroom at the Pines. How do we plan to address security at both of those locations? Will they only be open when there's games? Are they going to be on a timed lock? What is the?
So the
There's a
goal is
plan
to
for
make it so that they're on a timed lock. So just like what we did with the Pines bathroom, is that in order to alleviate some of the maintenance costs as well, is that we've invested in a lock that will lock at a certain amount of time. So it won't lock anybody who's in there. If you're in there, you can get out of there, but at, say 6 PM, they're closed, it will lock so nobody else can go into the facility. So we have taken that into consideration, as well as monitoring. And then, in addition to that, taking into consideration the fees for supplies and cleaning, we will be revising our fees to reflect such. And in talking with at least the folks over at the Groveland View Soccer, they're in favor of that instead of having to pay for a porta potty and having to do what they currently do, which is maintain the facility themselves.
Sure. And so for Shanahan, there's the ability to hook up to sewer.
Correct.
Is that also the case at?
That is not the case currently over at Washington Park. So we did talk about putting the structure in place that would allow us for a future connection into sewer once and if it's brought over to that area. But having control of the actual facility itself doesn't necessarily mean that the tight tank situation is a bad situation. It's just currently the facilities that we have over at the Shanahan are
It's
subpar,
not
so.
large, yeah.
Exactly, so it just makes it a little bit more difficult. But that will come at a cost from maintenance, and that will be something that we'll need to take into consideration in terms of pumping the tank if that moves forward.
Yeah, yeah, I mean,
And
that,
have you looked at all at compostable like they're using in the Havel Pond Lake?
So Arthur Marcos, our highway superintendent, as well as Steve McPherson, our building and facility supervisor, are looking into alternative options.
Perfect. Ed, you had a question?
Just back on Washington Park, obviously there's no sewerage up there, so would that be a holding tank, or would you do a holding tank like they have at the soccer field now, or would you put in a septic tank?
So right now, it would be the holding tank, but as stated, they are looking into alternative options to alleviate the maintenance that is associated with such.
Well, maybe a bond issue to run sewerage up Main Street, the rest of Main Street, up Washington Street, to Center Street, et cetera.
That'd be great.
Almost.
Something that I think we need to, as a town, look forward to happening eventually. Yes, Kathy?
So, yes, Washington Park is right around the corner for me, so close to my heart. I mean, my children all enjoyed riding down there for the hot dog special. Saved me many dinners that I didn't have to make. But a question. So I don't know if you're aware, but they have like the smaller ball field over by the South Fire Station, And I thought there was supposed to be dedicated parking for that field over there, but like the last baseball season, it looked to me like the parking lot on the other side, the two big fields, that the parking lot was overflowing, and there just wasn't enough parking for the people that were trying to attend. And in thinking about that, I wondered about, the smaller field with a little smaller children, younger children, put it that way, younger children are playing. There's like a rough path, but it's not really easy to negotiate, to get, I'm assuming the bathrooms would be over by the snack shack side.
They're still doing the siting for that, but yes, I do know that the highway department did just recently line the parking lot over at Washington Park, which was not done before, so that gives you a clear delineation of the parking spaces, in addition to the parking spaces that were lined over by the basketball courts, which
Okay.
are more in line with that field, so there are ADA parking spaces associated with such, so that does give you a shorter walking distance, and it is a clear path for somebody with a wheelchair or mobility issues would be able to get to the smaller field if they chose to park at the parking lot behind the central, the South Fire Station.
Right, but my question, and maybe this is for a future project, because I know that the bathrooms are a big and essential project, but there is like a rough path, but it would be difficult to negotiate if your balance was at all even slightly off, because it is pretty rough right now, and I assume we own that land on the side there?
Correct.
Right, so that at some point, we could perhaps put that path forward as something to be widened and paved, so that, not during the winter maybe, but during the season, people could get through with a stroller or small children.
We can definitely consider that.
And that might be why they're not parking over at the smaller field, I don't know. I think it's a difficult path right now, because it's pretty overgrown, there's bleachers that have fallen apart up there. It'd be nice to see it cleaned up at least.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that for sure.
Okay, great. And then the bathrooms would be locked when there's not activity at the park?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I know Select Board Member Steve Baker had another question.
Yeah, but it wasn't related to,
Okay.
it was related to the basketball at the Bagnell. So
Okay.
I don't want to, if there's more questions on the two bathrooms, I think we should address that first.
Nope, go ahead.
So on the basketball courts at the Bagnell, I've been down there a number of times. I do agree that it does need to be redone. My only question is there anything in the agreement with the school that would not be open during the school day?
Yes. So you're not allowed to use school property when school is in session.
Okay.
And so the same would apply as you currently do when you drive in and drop off. You know how you go around the building? There's the chain that's up there
Yep.
that stops you, so that would still be up during the day. So it'd only be for after hours and weekends.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's all I had.
All right, so would somebody like to make a motion?
Oh, make a motion to accept the projects, the CPC projects as presented?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Yep.
4 in favor, 1 absent. And with that, we'll move on. We have no appointments or resignations. Did Kevin talk to you about a possible joint meeting prior to?
Correct.
Has there been anything further than that?
I have not,
That later?
he has not touched base with his commission yet, so I don't have a definitive date.
Okay. Approval of the minutes? For August 18th, September 2nd, and...
Mr. Chairman, I've read those over, they look to be in order, and I'll move for passage.
I think we have oh no, Steve was there? Oh, Steve was there, okay, because I have to abstain. I wasn't there. So you do have a
I'll
quorum?
second the approval of the.
Yeah, you have a quorum.
And, any further discussion? No? All in favor? 3 in favor, 1 absent, and 1 abstention.
Yep, thank you.
And old or unfinished business?
We have another minute, September 2nd?
I think we did all 3, 18th, 20th, the 2nd, and the 29th. All three at the same time.
Well, no, because I abstained. I'm only abstaining from the 18th. I said I was not there. So I assume we were doing the other minutes after that. Could we do that again, please?
Sure, Kathy.
Thank you. You're the best. So I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025, as presented.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Not seeing any, call for the vote, all in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent.
And I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for Monday, September 29th, 2025, as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, do you need me to redo the other vote, or do you think we're
Nope, we're
clear?
good.
Thank you. Okay.
Old or unfinished business?
Do you want to do
You
that
had something, right?
under not reasonably
Oh, Not reasonably
anticipated?
anticipated, okay. Let's see. Discussion of proposed regional agreement amendments. No, that's gonna be, no. So yes, we'll move on to other items not reasonably anticipated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have something come through. I was contacted by the St. James Church about putting holiday fair signs on town property. They're looking to put up 3 or 4 around town. I did ask for a better idea of the location that they're looking to put the signs. They have not yet responded, but given the timing of their fair, I did want to just bring this to the select board's attention and see if they would have any problem with us allowing them to put those signs up.
Anybody have any?
No, no problem.
I don't think so.
No, so would somebody like to?
How long,
Make a
do we
motion.
know how long they'll be up for?
I don't know, I do not. I had reached out to get more information last week on Friday, and I had not heard back. If I have more time before the event, I'll definitely bring it back for the board. I just felt that I think that they had been thinking that they could just do it, so I just wanted to make sure it went through the proper process.
Yeah, I know.
Finding out where they're going to be,
I
what
know
they,
I've
what they're
seen-
going to be, where they're going to be.
I know I've seen one sign up already on Main Street, but I think it's just an individual person that put it up. I certainly don't have an issue with them putting them up there. In the past, because they've done it every year, since I've been here in 2016, they've always put them up and taken them down very quickly, and they're not ever obstructing anything, so I wouldn't have a problem with approving that.
This is the St. James Fair,
Yeah.
right? It's November 8th, so this is our last meeting before that. Yeah. So we wouldn't have time to find out where, but I mean, their signs aren't that big. They're just a little fair sign. I don't have a problem with that. That's
Wanna make a
fine.
motion?
I'll make a motion.
They take them down by
In the
the
motion.
10th or something?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve the placement of signs per the permission given by the town administrator, and that the removal of the signs will be shortly thereafter the dates of the fair. That's all.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Town administrator time?
So this week, I don't have much, but I do have a little bit to update you on. As we've been talking about, the traffic calming project on Route 113 has hit another roadblock, no pun intended. K5 Corporation, who is the contractor that we've been working with, had an issue with their machine in getting the thermoplastic out onto the roadway. So we are still waiting for them to do such. They also, because this work was delayed, will not be able to put up the delineators. So given the fact that it's so late in the season and we're gonna have to remove them anyway, and we were already kind of looking a little foolish to putting them up to putting them down, just to see how it all kind of functioned, we are going to hold on installing the delineators until the spring. So they are set to complete the work, and then again, the project will be completed when they put the delineators up after the winter. I also wanted to point your direction into the skate park. Things are going really well. Concrete is in, and it looks fantastic, so we're really excited to see that project coming together, and we're still on path, so we should be completed in the next few weeks. The North Shore Regional 911 onboarding, we continue to finalize the installation schedule. The firewall installation is scheduled for next week, and the camera and intercom and server installation are planned for early November. The fire station alerting system is moving forward, and there are purchase orders for the installation for CAD and Law RMS, which is our recording system. For a trash and recycling contract, in collaboration with the highway superintendent, we've developed a proposed scope based upon the feedback that we heard from both the Trash and Recycling Committee and the Select Board, and we've reached out to several haulers, Waste Management, Republic, Capital, and Mello, to gather information. So we issued the request for information and expect to receive responses by November 10th. For the fiscal year 2027 budget preparations, I have put together a draft budget timeline. I have shared this with the Finance Board, and they have approved. It is similar to what we've seen in the past, but again, as stated earlier, I want to recognize the historic practice that was in place and make sure that we have a smooth transition into the new process, which will ultimately result in the presentation of my official budget to the Select Board and the Finance Board. And then I did want to thank everybody and recap the Pumpkin Fest for 2025. It was a huge success. We were a little worried, but after a lovely post from Steve Collins on the Groveland Crier, we did get over 40 pumpkins submitted, so we were glad to see that. As you'll see in your packet, we did have the most silly, scary, and original winners. And we did want to send a special thank you to Steve Collins, who was instrumental in getting this year's event up and running, and then also to Annie Schindler, who did a lot of the organization behind the scenes, and it wouldn't have been a success without either one of them, and we're very appreciative of that. And we're also very appreciative to our sponsors. For those of you who don't know, the event is entirely free, other than the food that you buy at the food truck. So there's companies and businesses that sponsor raffle baskets that you just take a ticket and you don't have to pay for it, and they raffle them off. People donate pumpkins, people donate donuts. So there's a lot of different things that come into play, and we wouldn't have been successful without them as well. And then also just a special thank you to the police department, fire department, water and sewer department, light department, and the Langley Adams Library. Then I have a list of my ongoing projects. There have been no field use or property use permits. Important and upcoming dates, there's the Groveland Housing Authority meeting on October 29th, no procurement updates or technical review conferences, and then a list of the meetings, events, and seminars that I've attended in the last 2 weeks.
Any questions for Rebecca?
Two questions. On the traffic calming project, since that's going to be delayed, and I know there was a lot of resident interest in that, are we going to put something out saying that we're not going to be installing the markings?
Correct.
Or could we put something out?
We are going to be doing that. We did have, if you look outside, there are those little yard signs that are out there with the QR code. So we had some feedback from residents as well. So we will be putting up an update. I'm just waiting to hear back from the MVPC in regards to when they expect to complete the work so that we can have a more solid timeline to share for our next steps. But we will be sharing something on that on Facebook and social media.
Okay. And then on the, I know we talked about this, but on the regional 911, I just really would like to understand what that backup connectivity looks like.
Yes, I did send an email out to Red after we spoke, and he hasn't gotten back to me, but as soon as he does, I'll share that.
Absolutely. That's all.
Is that all the questions we have for Rebecca? So we'll move to Select Board time and reports. Kathy?
I don't think I have a report. I do want to weigh in at some point on this whole school formula thing. You know, that's been a pet project for years, and I encourage any other member of the board that wants to deep dive into it. They've hit on a lot of the things that bothered me with this formula in their summation. That's the Mass Municipal Association, but I haven't yet seen them hit on that, like a city of Haverhill, they don't separate it into the wealthy neighborhood, the medium wealth neighborhood, and the lower income neighborhood, and assign them different amounts to have to pay. And for regional school districts, that's exactly what they do. they build a foundation budget for the school, and then they turn around and they don't treat us like we're one school district. And I think that is something, it's kind of, I think it's a little bit referred to in here in some of the talk about how the uniqueness of regional school districts is ignored, but I ran our district through what looked like the formula used for Newburyport, and it looked to me like we would gain more state aid perhaps initially if we were treated as a single school district in a manner that's more fair than what's happening right now. So one of the reasons that Groveland has faced such unusual increases isn't just our percentage of the students, it's this formula has been punishing us unnecessarily. And if it continues, I mean, it's kind of like we don't really know what's going to happen one year to the next. So we need to really get a handle on it, I think. And I think this information from Mass Municipal is a great start, but I think that we should weigh in more on that. And my only other thought for the night is it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I lost one of my college roommates to breast cancer not that long ago. And I know firsthand how fast it can happen and how quickly it can cause someone's death. So to everyone out there that's fighting it, my heart goes out to you and to your loved ones. And I hope someday that this can be eliminated.
Did you attend the listening session for the Chapter 70 talks?
No, I miss it. It's during the day, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of teaching.
Yes.
They
there's
frown upon me leaving the
more.
classroom. I don't know why.
There's 3 more, and then the last one's going to be virtual.
Okay, are they recording them at all?
Yes.
Good, then I
I
can go.
don't
listen.
know where to see them, though.
I'll find out. I'll
Weren't
ask
clear
them.
about that.
I'll ask about that.
Ed?
No, I don't have anything.
Steve?
Just 2 things. Just, again, to echo what you said, Rebecca, Pumpkin Fest was awesome. I know there's a lot of events in town. It's one that I really enjoy every year. I thought it was well put together, well attended. Everyone seemed to have a good time. And then I know it's in our packet, but I did, and I'm not sure if everyone's read it, but I think that document from the MMA about the fiscal pressures that cities and towns face was fantastic, and I would encourage everybody to read it. It's actually something I'd like to see us distribute to some other boards and committees in town, because I think it's really valuable information and really kind of helps you understand some of the challenges that we have when it comes to balancing our budget as well as funding sources and things like that. So it was really, for 10 pages, I learned a lot.
And that was titled The Perfect Storm, right? Yes. Yes, and that was brought up during the Chapter 70 talks. I went to the first meeting, and I still plan on going to the other ones, just because the format is people come, they sign up to speak, and they speak. A lot of the towns and cities that were there said a lot of the same things. They're not getting enough money. And the money that they get, because they're not getting enough money, they have to cut state, municipal resources. They all said the same thing about the wealth. We're not as wealthy as we're perceived. So it was unique to see that from Lawrence, Salem, Beverly, Boxford, Merrimack, Topsfield, they all said a lot of the same things, but didn't offer changes or better ways to do it. But some of them did, like Malden. They went over a few different ways that they'd like to see some changes done. And I believe also Topsfield mentioned probably the biggest thing is making the formula a lot easier to understand and more transparent. Because when you have a formula that nobody understands how they come up with it, and you have to pay to take a class to try to understand it, I wouldn't consider that to be very transparent. And I think that's probably the biggest change, because if they were to do that, I think there would be a lot better understanding of where this funding should be coming from and how it should be done. One of the suggestions that one of the towns had made was, which I have here, when it was recommended wealth to take into consideration the income percentage of tax burden and the diversity of the students' needs. And that was the FinCom chair from Amesbury. And I thought that was very thought out and something that would probably make a lot of sense when you look at a formula. Not that I understand the formula that they're using currently, which they very well could do that now. Nobody would be aware. So as it continues on, I think it's important, and I encourage anybody to look it up and watch it when Kathy comes back and tells us where to find it.
I will.
So they
I'm
can
on
see
it.
And of course, Justin Bartholomew also gave his notes. Although I didn't see him there, he either watched it or was there. And yeah, he also focused on what the towns and cities had to cut versus what and how they actually calculated out the wealth of the town. Some of the towns did point out that the wealth of the town seemed inflated because the people that had been there for 30, 40 years no longer had that type of wealth of the people that were moving in. But the people that are moving in do. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to make the housing market a more stable place. So it's not just shooting up, and if everything's much more stable, then people can stay in their homes for their entire life. Which, with the way things are going now, it's just not possible. So with that,
Wait.
wait,
What about open house?
open house.
Yes,
Whittier's have an open house on November
Sunday.
2nd, 1 to 4 p.m. I recommend going.
Yeah, it's really fun. They give you free food too, just so you know.
It's definitely an education, and especially with all the talks of the new school and merging and the needs of the school, I think it's important for a lot of people to go to it and see it firsthand.
Right, so if you give me a second, you can get there and you can sign up for a tour, or if you want, come find me. I'm on the 4th floor if I'm not at my stand by the thing. We all go stand by the math table for a while, but I'd be glad to take you on a tour of all the shops. This is the one time that we open up the building when all the shops are also open at the same time, and we have 22 or more shops, so it takes some doing to find them all and see them all if you've never been in the building. So anybody that shows up from Groveland that needs some help finding things, just come find me. I'll take you there. Glad to help out.
Do it. I recommend it highly. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn at 8:29 PM.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you, Groveland.